With the United States now moving to limit the modified RNA COVID-19 shots to high-risk groups and demanding more robust clinical trials, when will Canada start to follow the evidence-based science, especially when other countries have scaled back or banned them entirely? Let's dig in. Let's start with a post that caught my eye by the Independent Medical Alliance, formerly known as the FLCCC Alliance, which stands for the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care. On May 16th, they asked, why is America still recommending mRNA COVID-19 shots when countries around the world restricted or banned them years ago? And it only took the Trump administration days to respond. FDA Director for the Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research, Dr. Vinayak Prasad, announced an evidence-based approach to COVID-19 vaccination on May 21st.
Has evolved on this topic. With changing evidence, we have a changing regulatory framework. And what has changed? Well, we have a population where many Americans have been multiply infected with COVID-19, sometimes without even knowing they had COVID-19. The risk of severe disease and hospitalization, thank goodness, has fallen among the American people. The efficacy of repeat doses of the products of these vaccines to further reduce severe disease and symptomatic illness is uncertain. And there are important safety considerations whose long-term impact is not fully known, and we will continue to monitor those closely. So FDA's strategy in this space, here's what we're going to do. We will hold this year's Vaccine Advisory Committee later this week on Thursday, and that's a committee of experts that help FDA decide which target strains, which antigens to recommend for this year's vaccine that companies target. And going forward, we will apply the following evidence-based framework to evaluate all the COVID-19 vaccines. So based on prior immunologic endpoints, that means proof that the vaccine can create antibodies in people, companies can apply for, and we will consider approval for 65 and older and or people at high risk of severe COVID-19. So if you're older than 65 or you're high risk for COVID-19, we're going to use the immunologic endpoints we've been using to grant approval. This is a tremendously broad category. This effectively means 100 to 200 million Americans, those with the most favorable benefit to harm balance, will be covered by such approvals.
Dr. Prasad detailed the endpoints they hope to study going forward, which begs the question why this wasn't done before, but regardless, here we are now.
Fit primary endpoint, but we're also going to look at severe disease, hospitalization, and death, which are endpoints I think Americans and their physicians care a lot about. We want the companies to follow these people for at least 6 months because we want to make sure that if the booster has a reduction in symptomatic SARS-CoV-2, that effect isn't washed away 5 months or 6 months later, that those benefits persist. And finally, we must develop randomized evidence. We owe it to the American people. We have launched down this multi-year campaign of booster after booster after booster and distrust of the American public, and we do not have gold standard science to support this for average risk, low risk Americans. It's not just our view here in the current FDA commissioner and myself, it's the prior FDA commissioner as well. This is Rob Califf in JAMA. He writes, COVID vaccine uptake is now low enough that large randomized control trials are feasible to evaluate the efficacy and safety of new updated boosters. And again, he stated it again on May 9th. Quote, in the case of COVID-19, I believe it would now be quite reasonable and even advisable to conduct placebo-controlled trials for quote unquote boosters using updated versions of the vaccine in people who are not high risk. Just a couple more points. What about vaccinating healthy people near or around an immunocompromised person?
He goes on to explain that there is exactly zero evidence to justify vaccine mandates, such as for healthcare workers, with the concept and once widely believed dogma that vaccinating healthy people protects those that they interact with. And then he further details how trust in institutions, especially those tasked with overseeing pharmaceutical product regulation and recommendations, is at rock bottom.
I could see almost two interpretations of the very low uptake of the recent COVID booster in healthcare workers. One is that healthcare workers don't find value in it. The other is that healthcare workers would like to see some updated clinical evidence before taking it. And I think if we're being honest, we don't know the rationale, but it would seem as if the universe of possibilities would include a desire to know whether or not clinical evidence supports a benefit to taking it that outweighs the risks.
I mean, I can speak personally, if you proved it to me that there's a benefit to someone like me, I will take it. And most of the doctors I know are responsive to that evidence. If the companies conduct these studies and those studies are glowingly positive, I think that doctors will embrace it and be able to counsel the patients in a way they haven't been able to honestly counsel. How do you counsel a healthy, thin 50-year-old in your office who's had COVID 3 times, had 5 shots? How do you counsel that person about it's almost impossible with the current evidence base?
Dr. Martin Makary, who is the 27th commissioner for the Food and Drugs overseeing the FDA portfolio, posted that doctors are hungry for data on COVID-19 boosters. If a 52-year-old perfectly healthy patient came to me asking if they should get their 5th or 6th COVID booster, I wouldn't have any evidence to inform a strong, educated recommendation. It's been a guessing game.
I mean, look, if somebody comes to you 52 years old and perfectly healthy, and they're asking you, should I get my 5th or 6th COVID booster? I mean, I don't have any evidence to inform an educated, strong recommendation.
It's been a guessing game.
Now, this FDA update on yearly COVID boosters is now following the actual science, approving vaccines for high-risk persons while also demanding robust gold standard data on persons at low risk with clinical trials that will inform future directives and provide information that is desperately craved by healthcare providers and the American people. This follows recommendations that have been in place in countries like Denmark, Finland, and Sweden, which hit the brakes on these shots for certain groups, especially younger people, as early as 2022. Why? Because they saw the signals, heart issues like myocarditis and pericarditis, and a whole lot of questions about long-term safety. Yet here we are in 2025, and the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, called NACI, the ones who set the tone for Canada's vaccine policies, well, they're still recommending these mRNA shots. Yes, and that includes to babies as young as 6 months of age. And of course, indiscriminately to everyone who works in a healthcare or other care provider setting. These modified RNA shots have been and are increasingly being questioned by scientists and doctors worldwide, but Health Canada is sticking to their script. Under benefits of vaccination, they say that COVID-19 vaccination may reduce your risk of becoming infected. If you do become infected, having been vaccinated before infection reduces the risk of severe illness, hospitalization, and death. And as the new FDA leadership emphasizes, this claim lacks any foundation in clinical trials where it was neither studied, tested, or established as an endpoint. So how does Health Canada make this assertion? Well, I reached out to the media relations line at Health Canada to make sure that we had the facts to report to you and to see why the science is different here compared to our southern neighbors and other countries abroad. I asked Health Canada what steps it's taking to align with evolving science following the updated FDA guidance on COVID-19 vaccines and boosters, how it plans to update its recommendations based on current evidence, and why its approach might differ from that of the US and other international regulators. Now, I'm not here to tell you what medical choices to make. That's entirely up to you. Informed consent matters, and your health decisions should always be respected. But it's fair to ask, especially at this point, why the disconnect? Why have other countries not only scaled back, but are taking the lead in pushing back, while Canada continues on with claims founded in missing information? Is it the influence of the pharmaceutical interests, the billions locked into contracts, or is it simply easier to keep the momentum going than to pause and admit perhaps some things didn't quite go as planned? Now, here's the thing. Science isn't a monolith. It's supposed to evolve, to question, and to adapt. But when NACI and Health Canada keep parroting the same line, benefits outweigh the risks, without addressing the growing pile of studies, the adverse events reports, the real-world data from other countries, it starts to feel less like science and more like dogma. And I get it, the massive psychological operation deployed on the general public, coupled with things like sweeping mandates and vilified speech, worked on a large segment of the population who wanted to believe in a silver bullet. They were led to believe that they could protect their loved ones, their communities. But 5 years later, With all we know now about side effects, about waning efficacy, about natural immunity and immune suppression post-injection, about the undisclosed contaminants, the manufacturing scale-up that changed the makeup of the shots completely, the inappropriately applied regulations, can we at least have an honest conversation? Can we ask why Canada's still recommending these shots for babies, why they're still pushing them on everyone when other countries have clearly said enough is enough? Canadians deserve better than recycled talking points because our health, our kids' health, and our future matters, and it depends on it. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. If you'd like to see more reports on this topic and perhaps support my work, you can do so at nomoreshots.ca. That's nomoreshots.ca.